So you got some music theory that you don't understand. Maybe you're in a choir or you're in a band. This is called Alberti bass, but let's go slow, it's not a race. I got one more thing to show you. There's nothing that you can't do. No, you can do anything I can. Alright, this is called the Neapolitan. It's a major chord built on the flat too, and as you can tell, it's really nice. Yeah. Let's get into it, everybody. Hey, everybody, welcome. Today we have a question from Luke. And by the way, if you want to get your music theory questions answered, just click that link down below and ask your question, and maybe I'll answer it on the show. But today, Luke asks, what exactly is a sus chord? It's been explained to me very briefly during jazz band by my band director, but I don't completely understand it. Okay, so what is a sus chord? For those of you who are just a little bit more advanced with music theory, I'll cut to the chase. What a sus chord is, let's say in the key of C, a sus chord would be, instead of playing the third, you would raise that to the fourth. That's a suspended chord, sus 4, it's also called. Or there's a sus 2, which instead of playing the 4, you play the second scale degree, so 1, 2, and 5. Okay, so that's what it is, but let's back up for everybody else. Okay, so what is a suspension? It's a kind of tension in music, okay? There's tension, and then the tension has implied resolution or implied release. I'll start with one. This is not a suspended chord. This is a dominant 7 chord. And if you haven't seen my video on 7th chords, make sure you check that out. I'll put a link to that in the description as well. But even if you haven't seen that, here's a dominant 7, a C dominant 7 chord, or a C7. Okay? There's a bunch of tension built into that sound. And that tension has an implied release, an implied resolution. And so the implied resolution is, okay? And we talk about it in music theory all the time as, where does it want to go? And obviously, music doesn't want to do anything. But what we mean by that is, what is the implied resolution? The most obvious, tension and release. So let's just take a look at this one. Again, this is not a suspended chord. This is a dominant 7th chord. But where is the tension and where is the release? Well, with this one, when we talk about the 7th chord, we can count up the scale degree. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's where it gets its name. So that 7th scale degree is a B flat in the key of C. And the release is here. Okay? So just that tension and release. And with the bass, pretty nice. So that tension has an implied, it's like, oh, this is where it, quote, wants to go. Now, if we take out that note, it sounds like this. And you may be saying, well, that still feels resolved. And that's true, because there's another tension note in this chord. So even without that 7th scale degree, we have the 3rd scale degree. 1, 2, 3. There's tension. If I just play this, well, that doesn't sound resolved. Come on, play the resolution. There it is. Okay, so what happens if we just play the tension and release notes? Lots of tension and lots of release. Okay, but now that begs the question, what would happen if we played the other notes, the ones that aren't the tension notes? And that would sound like this. Very, I would call it sterile. Not a lot of tension. This here is a stable sound. It doesn't have any tension. It's not really going anywhere. And that is a root and a 5th. That's a perfect 5th. Stable sound. Pretty boring. Okay, so we have tension and implied release, or implied resolution. Okay, so what's a suspension? Well, a suspended chord is a different kind of tension. And so we say, instead of playing the 3rd, which was this tension note, instead of playing the 3rd, we're going to play the 4th scale degree. So there is no 3rd. And again, if you've seen my 7th chord video, you know that the 3rd is so important because it decides if it's a major or a minor triad. So a major one would be the major 3rd, and a minor one would be the minor 3rd. Without a 3rd, well, this is the thing that we were just talking about a second ago, this sterile sounding perfect 5th. There's no tension in there. So a suspended chord says, why don't you, instead of playing the 3rd, play the 4th scale degree? There is no 3rd. And that's what a suspended chord sounds like. It's also written as a sus4 because you're playing the fourth scale degree instead of the third, sus4. But it's so common to have it be the fourth scale degree that if you just see like C sus and there's no number, it's saying it's the fourth. And there's another one, which is sus2, which means instead of playing the third, you play the second scale degree. And so that sounds like this. And so there's so much tension built into these suspended chords. So regular C sus, quote, wants to, right? Has this implied resolution. And then there's another one actually, right? So even in this one simple little chord, it implies that you should go here and then there. Isn't that amazing? And then a sus2, similar. So they all have implied places where they, quote, want to go. So there it is. It's your sus4 and your sus2. You could do it anywhere on the piano. So we could say A flat sus, and you just have to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so you play the 1, the 4, and the 5. There you go. I keep resolving it, right? I keep doing that. That's the implied resolution. But what's so exciting about this tension in music, which is all music is tension and release, is you can surprise the listener with something else, you know? So there's the implied resolution. Here's this C dominant 7 chord again, and the implied resolution. But what would happen if we went somewhere else? Right? Oh, that's a little bit more interesting. Or you can totally break those conventions and go someplace where the listener is definitely not expecting. Right? So you set up all of these tensions, and if you break that convention of where the listener might expect it to go, well, that's what makes this whole thing really exciting. And sometimes you can just give the listener what they want. You can just do exactly what the suspension is expected to do. Or you can do something a little bit more, let's say, deceptive. So, Luke, I hope that answers your question and you understand suspended chords a little bit better now. The reason I think they're called suspended chords, maybe I'm wrong, but this is how I understand it, is that you have some very common chord progression, like let's say, okay, 1, 4, 5, 1 is what that's called. But watch this F. Just keep your eye right here. Okay, what would happen if instead of going down, it suspended, it stayed on the F? Well, right? So that's where I imagine this word comes from. It's these very traditional chord progressions, and that's a note that is held over from the chord that might have come before. See, it's not so bad. Just a little suspension chord for you. So I hope this helps, and if you have a music theory homework question or just a music theory question, go ahead and click that link right in the description. By the way, Patreon folks, you get first dibs, so if you want your question to almost definitely be answered, join us over on Patreon, patreon.com/classical trombone. Otherwise, I have an album called Half Man, Half Machine on Apple Music, Spotify, and YouTube Music, and that sounds a little something like